A leader of one, myself, may, keyword, may someday be a leader of many. But if you can't lead one yourself, you probably won't lead any.
And I believe all businesses, whether you own a mortgage company, whether you're in a direct sales business, or whether you work for a hospital, you're building teams of people to help you execute to either have an extraordinary business or a mediocre business or one that might even go out of business.
Everything you think that you can do as a person, you can 10x. You're going to only achieve what you believe is possible. Everything else, you're going to stop 3 feet from the finish line.
When you think of military, it's hard not to think of leadership and politics. Today, however, let's explore how the military can prepare people for entrepreneurship. After all, leadership principles are leadership principles. And since so much of business success has to do with team building, what better organization on the planet is better at that than our military, especially when there are lives on the line? In Patrick Maloney's article in Harvard Business Review, he cites 4 things that the military teaches that all entrepreneurs should embrace in building their businesses. The first, don't wear your rank on your sleeves. Now, when I think of this, I think of John Maxwell's book and concept on the 5 levels of leadership, where he starts out teaching us that the lowest level of leadership is rank or title, or, maybe you're given the gift of being a manager. And people are forced to follow you because of that title. They're not necessarily following you because they want to, it's because they have to. It's forced upon them. As you truly move through the levels of leadership, however, people begin to follow you for what you've done for them, or ultimately for who you are and what you've become. We see that at the higher levels of leadership. And when I think of don't wear your rank on your sleeves, that's exactly what I think of. It's one thing to have a title, have a rank, but it's another thing to be a leader that people want to follow. The second point that he brings out is use the knowledge of others. See, what I see throughout the years of working with different leaders is that when a leader is insecure, they don't like to ask for help, meaning they don't want someone in their organization to, overpower their leadership. They want to appear that they know more than everybody in their organization. But great leaders, however, they utilize the strengths of the people within. And key number 2 here, use the knowledge of others. That truly does not make you insecure. It actually secures your leadership when you empower people around you. The third point he brings out that he learned from the military to bring over into entrepreneurship is that sometimes, and all the time actually, you should respect others, but sometimes you need to call them out. But do this privately. So point 3 is respect others, but call them out privately when necessary. In my opinion, this basically means to be respected, you have to show respect. And to show respect means we're not here to embarrass people in our organization, but we are here to help them grow. When we do this privately, people pay attention to how we deal with this type of business and how we deal with our employees or people that are working within our organization. And as we respect others, we ultimately become respected. Point number 4, and the last point here today is this: plan, but don't expect the plan to work. Now, when you initially read this, you think, well, that's kind of a negative way to look at things. But that's not what he means here. What this means is that you can expect to win, but expect that persistence is going to be needed. Meaning you bring an attitude of winning, that, hey, your plan is going to work, but you do have an expectation that there's probably going to be some curveballs coming your way, and it's going to require you to push through them, so that the beginning plan may have to be adjusted to get the win at the end. And so you can plan this way, you can expect this way, and you can build your businesses this way and build great, great businesses. He says in this particular statement, while plans are valuable and certainly help minimize risk, the way a leader reacts when things don't go as expected sets the tone for an entire organization. More than anything, it determines whether the original goal is still attainable. And so, as entrepreneurs, our leadership style does have an impact. See, there's a difference between leadership by intimidation and leadership by inspiration. Watch this.
Private sector thinks military is all command and control, right? Do this, do as I tell you, take an order. And so they think that being a strong leader, because they've seen too many movies, is barking orders and telling people what to do. Now, you know as well as I do that is a part of leadership, where I'm going to tell you a task without any context and you're going to do it. But that is reserved for moments of chaos. And when there isn't chaos, you're spending time building trust, you're spending time offering context, you're spending time building the esprit de corps, so that when you are in a chaotic situation, you absolutely can bark orders and scream and yell, because I don't have time for feedback and I don't have time to give you context. And they will follow the orders with high motivation because they trust that you would not give them an order that would needlessly put them at danger, even though they understand that you'll sometimes make mistakes. And so I think in business, in private sector, we need to learn to adjust as well, which is command and control works fine in short periods of time and moments of chaos, but it cannot be. Nobody has the energy to endure that on a daily basis.
Now, recently I was able to sit down with today's guest. He's an entrepreneur, a master team builder, and one of the most successful people I know at translating military leadership principles into business. I've personally known Matt Parr for coming up on 3 decades, and he's someone all business owners and constitutional entrepreneurs can learn from. Matt, welcome to the show.
What an honor to be on today on the Constitutional Entrepreneur. Both things are very passionate to me. I'm an old soldier. I've been out of the military since 1990. I served for a little over 11 and a half years. I got hurt. My career was ended with a medical discharge with an injury to my neck, hips, and back. And it was significant. It took me about 3.5 years after I got out of the military, out of the hospital, to get back on my feet and get back to work. So in 1994, I started my first career in business post-military, because I was one of those kids who went from high school football to college football straight into the military. Was on a mission to go do that. This is serving in the military is something I wanted to do since I was a little kid, since I was in kindergarten. I had posters of John Wayne with a green beret on his head. I had always believed that I was a cowboy and that I should serve my country. And it was so funny because I grew up in a suburb of Chicago. But, you don't pick what your DNA directs you to do, and you don't pick who you are. You just react to it. So I went from college right into the military. I think it was like 3 months after I graduated, I went and enrolled or enlisted into the Army with the hopes of becoming a U.S. Army Ranger and a Green Beret. There's no way to guarantee that. You have to pass the test and the courses and the schools. And so it took my whole first almost 2 years in the military to even get qualified to go to those programs to end up earning a Green Beret and a U.S. Army Ranger tab. So glad to be here, Ryan.
Well, man, thanks for being on. So let's start right there. You know, the Matt Parr, the 11-year military guy, Matt Parr, had not, up until 1994, had not taken anything that he had learned necessarily and built any kind of huge businesses or stepped out on that entrepreneurial front, to my knowledge. But here we are, 30 years later, and you're now looking back. You look back, and I guess what I would like to discuss with you today is during the military, before the business guy Matt showed up, there was a team, Matt. There were some things that you learned in the military that I think that when you went to go build your businesses, had to have been present with that, and still are present today as far as I'm concerned. Tell us a couple of the things. I mean, I've witnessed you build teams of, and influence tens of thousands of people over the last 30 years between the different sales organizations and the trainings and the things that you've done. And now with technology, it continues on today. But give us some insight. What, looking back, if you were to say, okay, here's some things I learned in the military that have stayed with me in my business career, what comes to your mind?
Well, you're correct. I've never had a job other than the military. I started out as a child. I had my first business when I was in 6th or 7th grade. Mowing lawns, trimming bushes. My brother Greg and I started a business doing that. My dad would drop us off out of his pickup truck with our tools and come back and get us later that day, and we would work. My brother and I went from that to I worked one summer installing swimming pools in high school, and I went, I can do this. I don't need to work for this guy. This guy's difficult to work for, and put together my own crew of guys. And for 2 years in high school and 2 years in college, all summer long, all I did was install swimming pools, and did that as a self-employed business person. I had a crew of 6 other guys that worked for me, and we had a lot of fun, made a lot of money, got a great tan, and stayed in shape. And then I went into the military, and my first real job was being a soldier. And I went from, the rebellious college kid, college quarterback, football player, used to getting things my way, to I showed up at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and got my head buzzed and got put in my place the first day.
So you were one of those guys that joined the military because you were tired of people telling you what to do?
Yeah, that's it. That's probably closer to truth than any of the way I've ever said it. So good job. But yeah, so I showed up, you get your head buzzed, and everybody has on the same green t-shirt and the same green breeches, and pretty soon you're nobody, and they rebuild you into a person of significant discipline. And it's not just the big army or the big military, but I went from big army to U.S. Army Rangers, which is a whole nother discipline package. I'm talking about, I learned that I could physically, mentally, and emotionally do things that I never even thought were achievable by any human. The type of things you'd see in a movie and go, yeah, then nobody can do that. And we did that kind of stuff to prove to ourselves, or for the instructors to prove to us, that you can do more, you can carry more, you can go farther, go longer. Everything you think that you can do as a person, you can 10x, and you can do 10 times that. And I didn't understand that until I used to think that football pushed me. Football was, even at a college level, was Girl Scout camp compared to going to Ranger School and going to the Green Beret Training Center. So it was a new level of a heightened awareness of what you're capable of doing, and that you don't stop because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You get through it.
Let's stay on that theme just for a second, Matt.
Sure.
Because we got lots of entrepreneurs listening. Let's flip over into business now. How much business success and entrepreneurial success really is overcoming mental hurdles, becoming emotionally stronger? Let's talk about what you learned in the military and translate it over into business, because you've seen a lot of people succeed. You've seen a lot of people try to succeed, but they ultimately failed. How much of that do you contribute to not being mentally strong, not being emotionally strong in business?
I would have to say all of it. It comes down to you're going to only achieve what you believe is possible. Everything else, you're going to stop 3 feet from the finish line. You're going to give up when the finish line is in sight. It goes back to Roger Bannister when he broke the 6-minute mile or the 4-minute mile, whatever it was. Up until that point, nobody believed you could run the mile that fast. Mm-hmm. They medically used to claim that if you tried to do that, your heart would explode and you would die. And Roger Bannister did it. And then shortly thereafter, because he proved it, people started doing it. And now high school kids do that in track and in cross country. And so it's, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I learned in business after 30 years was just about the time you think you can't do any more, you can do twice as much as you've already done. You just have to decide you want to.
So, and I want to continue on this just a little bit more here, because take me through, you're a younger man, obviously 30 years ago, we were all younger. And so you're entering into this new military relationship, this new team, and somebody is pushing you really beyond your belief system at that point. I mean, oh, yeah. you believe, hey, I can do this, and they're proposing that you do 5 or 10x more than that. In the beginning, you perhaps might have said, "There's no way possible. There's no way."
Right.
But at some point, you were nudged, you believed, you took action, and then let's fast forward to where you have now done 10x for what you originally thought you couldn't do 2x.
Right.
Try to help me remember what happened to your belief now that you look back at it. What just in your mind, how do you process what just happened? And are you now in a position where, because you have 10x your belief system through that point, you now become aware of how many people around you just don't believe in themselves, and it's why they don't push themselves. So talk a little bit about what happened when you first 10x that, and you look back and say, what in the world just happened here?
Yeah, that might be hard to go back there. Let me think about that for a second. While I'm doing that, let me just say this. If one man can, and I mean man and women, man as a species, not as a gender. If one man can, any man can. And I used to always giggle when Jim Rohn would say this, but he'd say, if men can do it, women get to do it backwards and in high heels. And so it's that old concept of, if I need to see somebody do it and then I believe I can do it, because I now believe that I can do anything I decide to. I've believed that for the last 30 years. And I think that solely that idea, that commitment to myself, is what drove me to do the things that I accomplished. It's what drove me to create the friend circle of the people that pushed me to accomplish what I accomplished. Because truly, I was not a successful entrepreneur. I've always said and believed that people that say they're self-made men, self-made millionaires, self-made entrepreneurs, my BS meter goes all the way to the top, because nobody does it by themselves. You do it based on the people that you surround yourself with. Jim Rohn always said this. I'm a big Jim Rohn fan. I knew Jim Rohn when Tony Robbins was one of his students selling his books and tapes at the table in the back of the room. And then I watched Tony Robbins grow up and became a big fan of his. John C. Maxwell. I surrounded myself with people that could speak life into me, speak courage into me, speak belief into me, and give me the tools that I needed to reprogram myself. Because the only thing that was holding me back from doing what I did in the military sooner, faster, bigger, better, was myself. Because even though while I was doing it, I still had self-doubt. And I think that's the thing that goes back to what you asked a minute ago. Self-doubt is what stops people in their tracks. It's not ability. I believe that you and I have talked about this. Give me somebody with mediocre ability, with big belief, and I'll show you somebody who can make 6 figures or 7 figures a year. Give me somebody who's got all the talent in the world and has self-doubt, and I'll show you somebody who'll be frustrated at the end of the year. So it's more about, I worked on me before I started working on other things, other principles, and other products, other people, building teams. I worked on me. And I coined a phrase 29 years ago. I don't know if I'm the only person who's ever coined this phrase, but I certainly am the only one I know. And that is, a leader of one, myself, may, keyword, may someday be a leader of many. But if you can't lead one yourself, you probably won't lead any. And in business, success is defined by your leadership. Everything rises and falls based on leadership. So I worked on me. I worked on my leadership. I worked on surrounding myself with people that had more talent than me, that maybe needed me to believe in them first and help them get that belief. And then once we had a team of people, and it doesn't take many. I've always said I want a 12-man A-team. I need 11 more people who think and talk and believe and act and do like I do, and get out of the way, because you won't be able to stop us. And, Jesus had a 12-man A-team. Special Forces Green Berets operate on 12-man A-teams. Rangers fire teams are 12-man teams. So everything I've ever learned about life, success, business, people, leadership, military, any of it was always centered around the magic number of 12. So I set out to go find 12 people that wanted to join me in business.
The military, Matt, the 12-man A-team scenario, you brought that into business. That's one of those things that you brought from your military background that obviously you learned. And when you're on a 12-man team, everybody has their roles. And I have noticed this about my friends and colleagues that have had military experience, kind of like yourself, they really view the team unit differently than somebody that wasn't a part of that scenario. And maybe you can correct me on this, but maybe it's because, hey, if team members make mistakes in the A team, somebody might die. So you learn to really think about your team members in very serious scenarios, not letting them down, creating team camaraderie. And I believe all businesses, whether you own a mortgage company, whether you're in a direct sales business, or whether you work for a hospital, you're building teams of people to help you execute to either have an extraordinary business or a mediocre business or one that might even go out of business. And so team building is the approach that I like to think about in all business structures for all entrepreneurs. But let's talk about that 12-man A team, a little bit of what you brought over, but some things you learned about accountability and team building from that perspective.
Yeah, I brought it all over, to be candid. What I did was I polished it and softened it. I learned early on in my career, my first 3-4 years in my career, that I had the snap, I had the enthusiasm, the passion, and the leadership capability to attract people to my team. And I got good at that. What I wasn't good at was keeping them. And so the first 3-4 years, I was kind of running a put them in, blow them out, put them in, blow them out, put them in, blow them out. I was running people off because I was too stern about the how-to. And then I started to learn the lesson that there's a lot of different ways to make a hamburger. There's a lot of different ways to fry an egg. It doesn't have to be my way or the highway. It can be any way that works for you. And there are some fundamentals of leadership that are not negotiable. The how-to is the physical action of what you say on the phone, or what you say at the closing table, or what you say in the presentation, or how you do the invite. That stuff's all negotiable. It's all personality driven. What's not is the commitment to get up tomorrow and do it again. And where most people fail is they invite 10 people and nobody shows up, and they go, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back and work at wherever. And they go back to where they settle instead of drive through. And when I see an obstacle, the Marines say, over the mountain, through the mountain, around the mountain, under the mountain, just get to the other side of the mountain. And they don't care how you do it, just get there. In Special Forces, we always had the concept of, we have a 12-man A team. We had 5 different military occupational skills, and we had 2 of each of those guys. So you had 2 commo men, 2 what they call bravos, the gun bunnies, the light weapons guys. You had 2 of the heavy weapons guys. You had 2 medics, and then 2 demo guys. So 10 total guys, 2 of each, 5 MOSs, 5 military skills, and then 2 officers to do the administrative stuff and take care of funding and deal with the up high, the higher ups. And so the idea of the team is you got 5 different skill sets that need to be mastered. You have 2 experts, and you have the other 10 guys are all learning how to do those 2 guys' job. And by the time I'd been on a Special Forces A team for 4 years, I knew how to do the commo man's job. I knew all the equipment. I knew all the batteries. I knew how to fix it. I knew all the weapons. I knew all the demolition stuff. I knew all the door kicking stuff. I could be the lead guy. I could be the trail guy. You had to learn everybody's job. We called it cross train. And that's the one thing that I brought with me to my team in business, was that everybody on the team needed to know how to invite. And that way, no matter who showed up when we were on any kind of a business mission, when we had a meeting in a hotel, or a Zoom on the computer, or a convention center, or 20,000 people in an arena, it didn't matter who showed up, because everybody knew everybody else's job. We could get the job done. And that's the one thing that I did bring from the military, as it was complete, full, here, we're using this. And it worked well. And it made it created a lot of stickum. and it attracted a lot of powerful people. Like it attracted powerful women who wanted to be around powerful comrades in business. It attracted powerful men, and they worked well together because they viewed each other as equals instead of one's better than the other.
Matt, thanks for being on today. Listen, the lessons, we could keep going on, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the show. But ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from somebody that built teams in the military and translated that over into a highly successful entrepreneurial, businesses, multiple businesses over a 30-year span. And my closing question to everybody listening today is, when are you going to start building your A team? Your A team is there. It has to be intentional. Matt, I know that you'll agree with this. Generally speaking, to build the teams that help any successful entrepreneur go to the next level has got to be an intentionally focused effort. These people don't magically just show up, by osmosis. There's some intention behind it. And you hit on something there, Matt. Early on in your career, you got pretty good at attracting people. But building a team and holding a team together are two entirely different skill sets.
Yes.
There's some sales skill sets that can help you get good at closing the sale, and maybe either or hiring or grabbing the right person to be a part of your team. But as those team members are around you more and more and more and more, and experience who you are and your level of leadership, will determine whether or not they stay with you. So oftentimes, it's the areas, as you mentioned, and some of the mentors you mentioned, the Jim Rohns of the world, the John Maxwells of the world. That's where these guys have an impact to help you become the person that will not only build a team, but can keep a team together. And so, Matt, thanks for sharing with us today about the A team. We look forward to having you back. And with that,
Thank you,
everybody,
sir.
that wraps up the episode. Bye-bye.